Everyone, sorry about that. I was having the darnest time getting Zoom to load. Get the Facebook Live up. I'll be working. Hang on just a second. We got a lot to cover tonight. So good to creative purchasing tips. Your seats for the. Let's see. I think four to let had to restart it. What was going on there, but maybe it's a. Let's see. All right, even Facebook having a hard time loading. Get this. There's people out there waiting too. On just 1 second. Oops, let's get you promoted. Hey, Bonetta, good to see you. Promote the panelist. Dat, welcome to see you. Gilbert, good. Okay, Gina, good to see you. Thanks for taking care of everything. Good to see you. Catherine, good to see you. Good to see you, buddy. You can let me know. Kimberly, well, we normally don't delays like. Please forgive me for that. Lou Carlson, good to see you. Hey Lou, I sent an email earlier regarding Jay Connors and the other gentleman you mentioned when we last spoke. Hey, see you. PF. Okay, let's see. Oh, Josh, good to see you. Susan Murray. Susan, ears ringing earlier. Good to see you. Or maybe your ears are ringing too. Hey, good to see you. Ursula, good to see you. Good for day. I think that is everybody. So let me, let's see. Techniques. Share on page. Okay. So I get that scored up. You guys okay? Everybody doing all right? Excellent. If anybody is not promoted a panelist, please let me. Oh, Betty, sorry. Heather, good to see you, Betty. I think everybody else has got the promoted to be panelist. Okay. All right, a couple of things. Tonight we're going to talk about creative purchasing techniques, but I'm going to focus on using money, but specifically doing it in the form of a partner, not a syndication. So this is going to be really basic stuff. Most are not, we're not ready for syndications yet, although anybody can do it. I'm not saying you can't do a syndication. It's more involved, more complex, and it does require some paperwork with the federal government, okay? But notably the Securities Exchange Commission, SEC. There's requirements like if you do a placement memorandum, which is what you do with a syndication, net worth of at least $1 and income, personal income of 250. In most cases, you'll be with a private funding. It would be the form of a partnership or just a simple private loan. So we're going to talk about that. And if we have time, I do want to get into lease option. I know people have been hearing more about. Also want to just point you where you can see what's available from federal, state, and local governments. Okay, in the way of grants and loan for certain classes of people, like American Indians, minority. There's all kinds. There's a dozen of them. I mean, it's actually half of the chapters on those programs. Also, I thought at time we touch on life insurance, even you personally, but we know who have cash values for whole life policies. And if we have time, we can talk about what is subject to actually, as we briefly approached the subject about a month ago. And I thought if we would get into more detail. So where you'll find this information is in this chapter, creative purchasing techniques. Everybody here should have received this already, prior webinar, prior classes. It's also in the book, Massive Passive Cash Flow Method, a chapter in the book called Creative Purchasing Techniques. Okay, so this is in there. But we'll get this out again tomorrow, just in case you're new, we're seeing this, just didn't download it the last time.
Gary,
yes, ma'am.
I know there's nothing you can do about it, more than likely. Just be aware that you're breaking up really bad, and Rob Parrott needs to be promoted too.
Okay, thank you.
So yeah, just be aware, go slow, that kind of stuff while we try and deal with catching you in little bits and then you catching up.
Yeah, it's the internet, and it must be something beyond me because I'm on 5G and we're hardwired. So got to be something with the network provider. I had to feel something like that was going on because everything else was working, except when I tried to load Zoom. I mean, it literally I had to restart to get it to load again. And it was on the server and the thing. So, okay. Looks like Rob, there's Rob. Okay, promote. All right, I think I'll get everybody. Oh, there's Brianna. Hey, good call today.
Kimberly Bailey too.
What's that?
Kimberly Bailey also said promote her, please. If you're out there and need to be promoted, let us know.
Yep, Michael McGran just popped on. We got a full house night. Jeff, people. Everybody else have hit the promote button at least once. We just keep an eye out for some kind of a message. I'm not sure what it looks like on your. Let me check the chat box here real quick. Let's see. This bad, your breakup. Okay, I hope this clears up. I'm getting the internet morning now, but boy, okay. I hope this this normally does not have. Okay.
Susan Murray.
Right. Let's check.
Susan Murray.
Let me get somebody here. Hang on 1 second. Okay, guys, I'm going to check one thing real quick here. So make sure I'm using. Yeah, I'm definitely 5G. All right, started. I'm going to go to chapter partners section, which is way down here. Page 64, I believe.
Gary, Kimberly Bailey needs to be promoted too. I believe I don't see that she's on the screen.
Kimberly, if you can hear, I've hit the promote button twice where I'm not sure what it looks like on your end.
She's there. I can see her. I think we're good.
I see Kimberly, but I don't see Susan Murray.
Okay, second. Let me see. Susan. Okay, Susan. Okay. We do a share screen. I really don't need to share. I want to kind of talk my way through this, but I will share. You see where all this information. Okay, this is in the partners section of the creative purchasing techniques chapter book, massive passive cash flow method. I'm on page 76 when the book. I'm almost. But let me just see page. The page number. and I don't see the page number, the printed page. But when you're going through this, it's page 26, okay?
It's listed on the
couple-
corner of your slide on the left
It
hand.
doesn't,
Yeah, left-hand bottom, page 76 of 104. Is that correct?
yeah, that's on the software Word. That's on Word.
Okay.
If the printed be like page 63 or something.
Oh,
And what I'm using is what's called the source material. Because of the agreement we have, I'm allowed to keep retain rights to the source material. Give it to you, can't sell you the actual book itself. I mean, that would, you can have to go to the purchase the book, but we can give you online version free. We're allowed to do that. So any case, back to this. Simple, just here. Ships, it sounds, is coming together for a project. In this case, particularly buying a piece of real estate. Okay. Most people form partnerships because one person has the time, the skills or talent, and another person has the money. So you form a simple partnership. It should be and feel free. This is definitely being. It's an LLC that at tax time is processed as a S corp. I'm sorry, processed as a partnership. Excuse me. So I was T corp with Liz. So it looks like it could be a partnership, and the IRS it is actually taxed like a partnership. You each will get a K1. Each partner will get a K1 at tax time. But what it means for you legally is this: both people would have equal ownership rights to the property. Most, again, one person's providing time, energy, skills, and talent. The other person's providing money. Okay. Now, everybody with me so far on that? Real simple, basic LLC. Okay. Now, you actually have a variety of inside the LLC as far as the actual structures and compensation. Okay. Now, in most cases, let's say you're flipping a home. When the home is finished being remodeled, you put it on the market, you sell it, get it under contract, and you go to closing. Typically the two will split the profit 50-50, right? After you've paid for material. Okay, remember, the person providing the wherewithal, the know-how, time, doesn't mean bringing in going to have materials. Those costs and expenses are all paid for first, and the remaining profit is what the two partners split. Okay, real simple, basic form. Another option is this, and that's simply profit sharing. So basically, the profit sharing. A loan type model is the person with the money and to purchase the property, material, and so okay. They're doing that work. The other part is doing the work with the money. The other part spending it. The return for the partner with the money is a percentage. Okay, just like a regular loan. If you get a mortgage or loan, there's always interest paid. Okay, so the person who lent the money to the partnership is getting a return, say 10% return of money, and it could be paid at the time. It can be paid in installments, which generally does not happen. Okay, but in any case, it's a structured loan, and the person who did the remodeling, the profit, but out of their profit comes expense, the cost of material and labor to do the remodeling, and the interest is also an expense you have to pay for. You have to pay that back as well as the original on the loan. Good old fashioned loan. Okay. Okay. I'm building some, but it's going to get more. Everybody okay so far? Any questions? Okay. Okay. Now, here's another variation. Third variation is we kind of touched on earlier. You can equity partnership or equal, equal owners like I did in the first example, except in that example, they split the profit. You can have people be equal partners, but you can also do variation of that. This is a third variation. Where the person with the money is not an equity partner, not an ownership partner, not an equity partner. You share in the profit. So they technically lend the money to the partnership, they lend to the LLC, and instead of getting a 10% return on the money, get a 50% share of the profit. But they have no ownership. Everybody follow me? No ownership, but they do share in the profit. That's the difference between this technique and the first technique. Now, what's interesting is you can actually combine these. I've seen partnerships where people, they are a lender and they're also receiving a form of profit. So they're getting 10% return on the money they lent to the partnership plus a share of the profit. Probably not 50% share, but maybe 20%, something like that. Okay. You could even, so you can do really any combination of two or all three of these variations. So in other words, another variation could be the person with the money can be a equity partner, a share of ownership, a partner, and also receive a return on in the form of, okay. Stop the screen share for just a second. If Betty's on, hang on one second. Hey, Betty, if you're on, go ahead and unmute yourself. There's Betty. Hang on one second, Betty. Promote. Okay, Betty, you should be able to be live now. And the reason this came up is Betty, she and I were having a strategy call today, and this was one of the subjects that came up. Was,
Yeah,
oh, hey, Betty, how are you?
good.
So I wanted to give you this first right out of the class because it directly addressed where you and I left off in our one-on-one earlier.
Yeah, I see that is great. Yeah.
It's a real simple. It's not a syndication. You don't have to have any special credentials. You don't have to vet the other partners to make sure that they're audited, with an income. Anything with the SEC, just a real basic partnership in the form of LLC. So just to recap, so Naomi, the recap is the first type is basically what we call equity partnership, where the person with the skills and the talent and the time is partnering with someone, the other person with the money, and they both own equal shares of the property and also equal shares of the profit when they sell the property. I'm using an example of a flip here. That's example one or very one. The second variation, person with money is strictly a lender. They're simply a lender. So the flipper would still do an LLC. My recommendation is anybody who is flipping homes or you're working with, you don't have to do an LLC, but boy, you really should LLC to provide ability protection. In any case, the subject of the class, in this case, the person is not a partner in the LLC. They're not a member, they're not an equity partner in any way, shape, or form. They're simply lender. That's all they're doing, lending money for a return of interest. That's variation number two. Variation number three is it's a profit share model. It's different between number one and version number three. The person with the money does get paid back 50% of the profit, but they don't get any interest. Okay. They're not an equity, they're not a member. They do share in profits of flip. That's all they do. It's basically a profit share. And then, of course, you can combine any two of those techniques or all three of those techniques for other variations. So, okay. Okay, so if you have questions, definitely raise your hand. Let me know. Unmute yourself. Now, the techniques of this are obviously setting up an LLC. And cover that in Liz's class. That was that last week, Liz? I think that was last.
Yes, it was.
Yep. So please, if you're interested in to be last week, Please get the recording. It's on the website. You go into the members area, then go into member resource, and then you want to click on recording. And that recording of that was in there. Also, if you're in the class, you should have received an email with a recording of that class, just like any other class that we have. You always get the recording the next day. Okay, so that way you'll have access to that. But setting up the LLC is the first technical thing that you'll do, or your investor. And nowadays, I believe it's a requirement that you use what's called a registered agent. Now, without last week's context, you can set up your LLC. You just would be your own registered agent, but I don't recommend that, because one of the benefits of having a registered agent is that it separates you. It gives you entity. When someone looks it up online, they see the registered agent's information. Okay, so but in any case, setting up the LLC is the first thing. When it's tax time, if it's a partnership, if it's taxed as a partnership, the LLC, then you know what's called a K-1, okay, on your personal return. That's literally the extent of the technical parts. Everything else is basic, simple flipping, methodology and terminology. And maybe we should have a class just on flipping coming up, because we haven't done that for a while. Okay, let me check the question box. I see there's 3 research. Okay, breaking up pretty bad. Same slide. What types? Okay. Does this seem like it's stabilized just a few moments, or is it still pretty choppy? Wow. Okay. Wish there was something more I could do about it. I could go offline and use my hotspot, but I don't know if that would be much better. Have anybody used this hotspot before for doing webinars? It can also be a little choppy. Hey, for the guests, I got to tell you, we've done hundreds of these, and really we almost never have a weak internet connection like this. It's definitely at the server level. So, Michael Lakeith is asking, how does this work if a mortgage is involved? Well, generally, Michael, if a mortgage is involved, you probably would not have a private lender in this situation. If you did, it would only be for the form of the down payment, or the let's say you had an 80% mortgage, the 20% down payment, that could be a third party. So now if that's the case, let's say there is an LLC and it is being as a partnership, there's 2 parties in there, right? Equity partners. The lender is going to want to have both sign loan. It's called guarantee. So the loan would be in the name of LLC. Both people would guarantee the loan. Has anybody done this before, where you've had to guarantee a loan for an LLC? Even all my years of investing, guys, and at the peak when I had hundreds of properties, I was still hired to guarantee a loan, because people always say, well, use an LLC because you don't in the LLC name. That may be true, but if it goes and pulls credit, they're going to see you guaranteed a loan. Okay, it's just like if you're helping a child buy a car or a house right out of college, and you sign for them, it's not much different than that. Different rules by that, but the effect is the same. When you guarantee a loan, your name is up. Okay, so there's really all they do is the LLC would have a loan in the LLC name, and anybody who's a member of the LLC, a partner in the LLC in this example, would have to guarantee that loan, and you put it. So, and then when you flip the house, of course, that loan is going to be in position. All right, the bank won't make the loan unless they're in first position in that example. So they pay the loan off first, then you could pay back the partner who put down the down payment, and of course that's after you paid off filing costs, labor. Again, usually when people get a mortgage on a flip property, they're just going to be they're going to be the only person on the LLC and the only person on the loan. Typically, that's what would happen. So, okay, let me check the other questions here. You ever first flip the money at 10%, He also was the contractor. We split the profit 50-50 as well. Wow. So the guy was the lender and the contractor, and you still got 50%. Dude, I'm gonna make you my business partner because that's a good deal. So good job. Was it a good moneymaker?
Yeah, it wasn't too bad. I think I think at the end there was 35,000 and we split that 35,000 with him. He
Okay.
ended up also, it was my brother-in-law who was the private money. So he made the 10% on the money loan. Then he was the contractor. And so he got paid a little bit for doing that. And then we split 50% on the backside. And he got his real estate license and got the commission at the end when he sold it.
Oh, hey, sign him up, put him on the team, man. You know,
That's right.
he's a fit. Well, all right. So I tell you what. So it's interesting. Let's just talk about the 10%. I didn't mention this earlier. Most mortgages are amortized. If you get a mortgage from a traditional bank, it's typically going to be amortized. So Gil, was that mortgage a straight, simple 10%? Like he loaned 50,000, he got 55,000 back?
That's right. I think we only asked him for about 75% of the money that we needed. We had the other 25%. And so he got just a straight 10% on his 75.
Okay. Okay, good. Thanks for sharing, by the way. Yep. Okay. You guys ready for the next one? Okay. If you have questions, guys, please chime in. I don't mind. Okay, let's do this. Let me show you where all the federal, state, and local programs are given to you in some detail. That's going to be page 36. So hang on just one second. Where's my taskbar? There it is. So I'm going to go back about half the distance. Aha. We're getting close. Oops. We're just got to find, there it is. Okay. All right. So this is going to be section 21 or strategy 21, which is page 36 of what you're going to get tomorrow. And if you look in here, you can see all the different types of loans were available. You know, what's interesting is, there's been a lot of news on immigration in the last, 10 years or something. But we've had programs for immigrants going back decades. I mean, some of the stuff goes back to the 70s and 80s when I first got started. Look at migrant farm worker, I mean, that's been a big deal in a lot of states. And for example, has anybody here ever lived in Illinois before? Great state of, Chicago's, of course, the big city in Illinois. Well, as you know, Illinois is mostly farmland. And down in Bloomington, in Peoria and places like that in Champaign, mostly farmers. And I know farmers out there that were struggling to find housing for their farm workers. They would literally buy houses, convert them to duplexes and rent it out, to the farm workers. So there may, and these fluctuate. I mean, what we're seeing today might not be available tomorrow. It just, they come and they go, but for the most part, these are the basic ones. So loans for people living in mobile home parks, loans for people wanting to make homes more energy efficient. There are flippers out there that specifically flip green homes. It's actually a thing. It's a big thing. Let's say you got an old house with lead paint. You can get a government guaranteed loan to some nominal interest rate to take care of it. Sometimes even grants, by the way. Okay. There's programs for low and moderate income people, first time home buyers, minority women, American Indian, property with an environmental hazard. Yep, there's loans for that. Loans for the elderly. That was always been a concern. Watching my family age, I mean, I've known all my grandparents and half of my great grandparents. They'll live into their 90s, and I thought, how does somebody in their 80s get a loan? Well, there's programs for that. Okay. How about being delinquent on your mortgage payments? Or if you're building, here's a big one. Did you guys know that Freddie Mac typically has very good loan programs for you and I to provide low income or low cost rental housing. Who's heard of Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad Poor Dad? Yep. Real neat guy. To meet him once for a day and have dinner with him and things like that. And he told us about some of his famous deals. And there was one where he built, I forget, it was 260 or 70 some odd unit apartment complex that he bought. He bought it with a Freddie Mac loan, and get this, guys, the term was 40 years fixed. 40 years fixed at 3%. His mortgage payment had to be minute, tiny. And all he had to do was provide a certain number of units to be made available for low income housing. Not all of them, but I think like 75%. Could anybody here make money on a rental property where your loan was 40-year term at 3% interest? I mean,
Yeah.
it's amazing. I mean, most of us get 15, 20-year terms on our investment properties. But in any case, how about neighborhoods that need revitalization? 20 to 30 years ago, there was an act called Community Reinvestment Act. Okay. And nowadays we know those as opportunity zones, different set of legislation, but similar concept. Basically going in and doing what's called gentrification. Yep, and fixing up old neighborhoods. Okay.
Yeah.
So
And
what I
pricing the
want you to
folks
do is,
out.
yep, if you look at this, guys, every one of these is broken down for you. Okay. The description, who you have to contact. So this is the kind of stuff, the addresses, this is the kind of stuff that you can use to share with your clients. Okay. So there's a lot out here, lots of possibilities. And all you got to do is just get this information and go online and Google it, Here's the HUD website right there for HUD programs. Okay. I won't go into any details on all those. I just want to show you where that section was. Okay. But if you have questions, feel free to ask me. I've only done one or two of those. I've not done the majority of those. But I've worked with plenty of clients who've done a number of those things. Let me check the chat box here. Hang on 1 second. Lou, Gary, what will change everything is replace the mortgage with an open-ended. Yeah, Lou, I'm going to bring you on Lou Carlson here towards the end if you don't mind, if we have time, because I want to mention that again. We mentioned it once or twice before, but I want people to hear what that program is all about. Okay. Guys, hang on 1 second. I've got to promote. Let's see. That's Berlendo. That's the person I want to promote. Okay. Good to have you aboard. Now let's see what's next. Page 36. All right, this one's going to be very simple because we've talked about this before. Do you guys remember a guy named Leonard Cabral coming on to teach class for us back in the fall? I can't remember the exact date, but he was teaching us how to use index universal life programs, right? That have life insurance. Yep. And they have cash value, and you can use the cash value. You can borrow against it to buy anything you want. In this case, real estate. But more importantly, you can borrow against other people's cash value in their whole life policies to buy property. And that's a form of a loan. You could do it similarly to what we described at the beginning of the class. Okay. It's just the source of the money would be different. In that case, you would definitely want to get because it's private money and it's using people's cash value and life insurance. I highly encourage you to encourage your clients to get a title company to do that process. Whoever does your closings for you, you don't need to go to a separate law firm. You can just simply go to a title, a closing company as closing, because they'll know how to draw up the note and mortgage for your client. Okay, everybody with me on? If we're using, just my personal opinion, if you're using private money in the form of cash value from a policy that you don't, parties using internet contracts and contract, they got all online, I would definitely use a title company to do that process. Okay. And also, in fact, I'll go this far with you. You would want to use title anyways, because you want to purchase title on the insurance, title insurance on the property. But title company, depending on what when they look at this, they might suggest that you also use a mortgage broker to draw up the initial note and mortgage. So you can have a mortgage broker do the note and mortgage, document those, and those would be given to the title company to do the actual closing. All right, so let me just take a quick pause here because I feel like I just gave you a big headful right there. Let me stop share for a second. If you could do me a favor, do a hand raise if what I just gave makes sense. If you need any filling in the blanks, just let me know. Everybody okay? Okay. And don't be shy if you're not, guys.
Can you repeat what you, like your last two sentences? Because I did did get lost there.
That's okay. So what I recommend, and I used to title company. We're borrowing money privately. It's one thing for someone to have the funds available. You know, they just have the funds available in some form of a cash account. But in my opinion, if you're going to be borrowing someone else's funds to come from a whole life policy, a life insurance policy, either IUL, universal life, index universal life, or whole life, any one of those three could have cash value. That's something a little more personal and a little more sensitive. So my recommendation is to have a mortgage broker. See, mortgage brokers don't work for any one lender. Mortgage brokers can get money from anywhere. Well, in this case, all you're doing is you're having them act sort of like a transaction licensee. So have them draw up the note and mortgage. The note is the promise to pay. The mortgage ties the note to the property, of course. And then you would have a title company do their normal business of closing the property and getting title insurance on the property. Okay. Now, let's say someone's already purchased the property. They already have it. They have an ownership. And you really don't need a title company for that closing. You can just then use a mortgage broker to draw up a note of mortgage, and then you can record those at the county courthouse, at the recorder of deeds office. What the point was is, for protection of the consumer who's lending the money, I would that's what I would recommend.
That makes sense. Perfect.
Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah. So, okay, life insurance. In the old days, by the way, the old whole life policies, you could actually take the money out and use it, but that was not a loan. You're literally extracting the cash value. Nowadays, you don't have to do that. You can borrow against that. So here's what's interesting. I guess I'll fill in the gaps here a little bit. With the life insurance, is generally going to be paying that money back, or they will be paying it back. And they're going to be paying it back at, say, 4%. Themselves back, which is one thing, which is good, 4% on their own money. But they're not charging the borrower 4%, charging them maybe more like 8% or 10% or even percent. I'm saying they're actually making more money. They're borrowing the money out and they're lending it to the who's going to flip the home. It's a two-step process. It's not like the borrower going directly into the GIA. That's not what's happening. She pulls the money out and then loans it to the other person. That person a higher interest rate. So that's what's really big on that technique. I mean, nowadays, these IULs are all over the place. Hey, Gil, have you used one of those before? In IUL, cash IUL?
No, that doesn't sound familiar.
Okay. All right. All right. Let's see. Well, you guys are quiet tonight. Maybe I'm doing too much talking. Let's see your life programs, partnership. Okay, let's do this. It's cool. We're doing good on time. Who here would like to have an explanation of a lease option to rent to own? We talked about these in the past, but maybe we should focus on that subject. Is anybody been approached by anybody to do a consumer to do a lease option, or you've wanted to lease one yourself?
I have, Gary. This is Vanetta.
Hey, Vanetta. Okay, so let's just distinguish between the two first. A lease option, you have two documents. One is the lease, which is a basic lease to rent a property for rent, okay? And the other is an option document. So it's two different legal principles. And what happens as a lease option is one person leases a property from the other and pays that person rent. In this example, in the case of a lease option, none of the rent goes towards the purchase of the property. So the lessee has no equity in the property whatsoever during the entire option period. Okay. So part A, the lease is just a straight lease. All the rent goes towards rent, nothing else. And it's for a specified period of time, like a year. The option part of it is this. The person leasing the property, the person renting the property, is offered from the seller to a person what's called an option to buy. They're not actually buying the property, they're buying the option to buy the property. It's a legal document called an option document, okay? So what it does is it locks in the price of the property at today's value, okay? And if you think about our market in the last 5 years, would you say that in a year's time, properties have gone up in value? Yep. So there's some benefit to a renter getting into a lease option because they can lock into the price now, but not have to actually get a loan on it for a year later. Now they do have to pay an option fee. They have to buy the option. It's not a free document. They have to purchase the right to purchase the property. And that could be 5%, could be 10%, could be 1%. General rule of thumb is you get 5%. Okay. Now that option fee is non-refundable. When you pay it, that money is one directional. If you do not exercise your option to purchase at the specified by the specified date, like a year later, you lose the option. I mean, you can do an extension, you can ask for an extension, but the owner's probably going to ask for an extension fee. Okay. So in this scenario, would you say the owner still has a preponderance of rights, or would you say the borrower has more rights? The renter, I'm sorry, the renter.
The owner.
In typical landlord tenant cases, doesn't the renter have all the rights, even though the landlord really does own the property?
Well, this is in a lease option. Here's what's different. So let me talk about rent to own. In a rent to own scenario, there are no option documents. It's one document, it's a rent to own. It's combined the terms of the rental of the lease and also basic terms of a purchase. As a part of that, a portion of the rent goes towards the purchase price of the property. So let's say you're paying $1,000 a month rent, and you and the owner agree that 10% of that, or $100 per month, goes to the owner in the form of equity. So principal, excuse me. So the renter has what's called equitable share in the property now. They don't only have right of possession. See, when you rent a property, you're given the right of possession. That's the basic right you're given. The owner still has all the other rights. So you have the right, of peaceful use of the property through the right of possession. But the owner still has equitable title, legal title, every other kind of title to the property. Okay. Now, in a rent to own, let's say you default on your rent, or let's say you go all the way through 1 year and you've paid $1,000 a month and $100 per month went towards the purchase price of the property. So you now have $1,200 equity in the property. Can that landlord evict you? Nope. It's a foreclosure. And believe it or not, the way the law is interpreted in most states is, even if there's only $1 of equitable ownership, it's technically a foreclosure. You cannot, a judge, as long as the judge is paying attention, if he sees an option fee on a lease option, he'll let you evict the tenant because the lease portion, that $1 went towards it. All those lease payments went towards rent. But on the rent to own, even if he sees only $1 went towards ownership, judge is going to say, I can't hear this case. It's not a landlord case. It is a foreclosure case. And you have to go to what's called the Court of Common Pleas, the next higher. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so we structured a deal like this. So tell me where this falls. We did a non-refundable fee. It was not an option. It was a non-refundable fee. We then brought up the purchase and sale agreement as if we were selling the house today. So I was working for the builder, and this is what we did to sell our properties. So we wrote up the purchase and sale agreement as if it was today, ran all the inspections and all that kind of stuff. And then, let's say the going, rent would have been $1,000, but we had them pay 1,200. That extra 2 went into a, gosh, not title, not escrow, an account that nobody could touch. And I forget what type of account it was, but it'll come to me in a minute. Went into an account to go towards their down payment when they did, but they weren't given a percentage of the property. So sort of land contracty, I guess.
Yeah, I've seen this before. Technically, what happens in a land contract is you pay on the property for a specified period of time, either in part or in full. And when that time's up, you've paid in a certain dollar amount, then you're given the deed to the property. In a land contract,
Oh, this was different. So what this was, the object was the non-refundable fee was to pay the agent. I came up with this. I have no idea what I did. I was new in real estate. I was figuring out anything I could to sell houses in 08. So the fee, the non-refundable fee paid me. So I got my commission because otherwise half of them won't go through. And then the balance was designed to be enough so that in 1 year or 2 years, whatever the term of the contract was, they had enough for their down payment. And in theory, at that point, all they had to do was make sure they got their credit cleaned up.
Okay.
But if they didn't execute, they lost everything.
so they paid a fee, they also paid a portion every month into this other account that was going to be used to accumulate the down payment. Okay,
Yep.
here's the question that so I'm just going to put this out there, but here's the question that's going to be asked in the court. Who is it that's in that other account where the monthly accumulation goes on?
It
It
went
should be an
into,
escrow.
it went into like an escrow account. It was protected escrow account. Yeah. So
So-
nobody could touch it.
Okay, now, normally an escrow account that's usually situation where this was, that money actually belongs to the renter. It's not the seller's money, it's the renter's money. If in other words, when you have an escrow arrangement, there's a whole body of escrow law, and it's actually federal law, and if it's breached or violated, it's a felony. It's not a misdemeanor felony, it's a big deal. So in that situation, the judge is going to ask, well, where it doesn't really matter where the account is. Theirs is deposit. It's going to say what every deposit needs to be itemized. It's going to say the date, time, the person, the whole 9 yards. And if it's an escrow, right, for the party of, it's got to say somebody. That's who owns it. In most cases, escrow and landlord-tenant law is that money belongs to the tenant. This is where landlords get screwed up a lot. They'll say somebody stiffs them on the last month's rent, which is common. Well, I shouldn't say common. One of the most common reasons to go to court is somebody stiffs them on the last month's rent. The owner says, "I'll just keep the deposit." Well, guess what landlord-tenant law says? You can't use the deposit, security deposit for rent unless a judge tells you can. You have to go to court to get that judgment. But a lot of people don't know that. They just say, fine, get the heck out of here. I'm going to keep your deposit. Did you know that tenant can come back and sue for what's called treble damages 3 times that deposit? Because if you don't notify them, now this is where every state's different. Some states it's 30 days. Some states it's 45 days. The landlord has to notify the tenant in writing what they're keeping, how much they're keeping. If they kept a portion of it, what did they use it to pay for? It better say repairs and maintenance with itemized receipts and everything else, because you got to show that in court. But if the owner says, well, I kept it to pay the rent, and you'd have a court. Now, a lot of times the judge is going to say, look, you guys just get out of here, settle. Obviously, this is over and done with. But in some jurisdictions, the judge is a lot of cases will side on the side of the tenant. Okay, because judges are voted in office. They're voted in a lot of jurisdictions. And they want votes, right? If they're in a low-income jurisdiction, they're gonna side on the side of the tenant every time. You know, I've had that happen to me, you know. But in other jurisdictions, they're more pro-owner. So in any case, Gina, sorry to get off on a tangent there, but what it comes down to is what party is the escrow account, what the monies in escrow account are being held for. In a landlord-tenant law, unless there's something I'm not aware of, in every case that escrow generally is on behalf of the tenant. The money is the tenant's money that they receive back at the end of the lease term. So they may have just done something. And then, guys, it doesn't mean you can't do these things. That builder there's no law that says he can't do that. The problem is if somebody files a complaint and all the law is written, the escrow law is written to protect the tenant, he's gonna, if he goes to court, he'll lose. It
Mhm.
doesn't mean he can't do it. It means he's at risk of losing it if something goes to court. You guys follow me on that? Yeah,
So
there's no
so
law
Gary,
that we can come up with all kinds of creative things. There's nothing legally wrong with that, as long as it doesn't violate the law. And as long as you understand, if the law and all the case law is based on, other things, you could be out of luck without even knowing why,
so Gary, this is Benetta. Does that vary from state to state as well?
The escrow law is federal law. They're states, the pecking order is federal, state, local. So states can't go against federal law. They can add to the law, but they can't take away from the federal law. You follow me? And they can't contradict federal law.
So the
And so
reason why
they-
I asked you, the reason why I asked you that is because I attended Lou Brown's workshop on Saturday, and
Mhm.
he said just what kind of what Gina did and what he called what was rent to own, and there was an option fee in there.
Well, if it's an option, it's a different thing. Lease option with an option
No,
fee.
I mean, in his calculation, when he showed us the rent to own, I mean, I'm gonna go to his seminar, 3-day seminar in the this month, or the middle of this
Mhm.
month. But anyway, I'm almost certain that he said just the opposite of what you're explaining, unless I misunderstood. Like I said, I'll confirm that,
Yeah.
but I'm a little surprised. And that's why I asked you if it varies from state to state.
Yeah.
Because he's not in the same state I'm in. So that's why I was asking him.
Remember, states can have their own interpretations of the law. They just can't contradict the federal law. So
Gotcha.
escrow law, landlord tenant law goes back to 1957, Landlord Tenant Act 1957. And then it was amended in 1991 or 94, something like that. But every state has to abide by the law, and they can interpret it any way they want, like the period of returning a deposit.
Right.
The federal government doesn't say 30 days, it just says you got to have a time frame. But what you're talking about here is, remember I said also, it doesn't mean you can't do this.
Mhm,
You can come up with all kinds of creative ways to do this.
mhm,
And, if you want to create a document or an agreement that says, I'm going to receive a fee from you, a non-refundable fee. There's
Mhm.
nothing legally wrong with that. But if it
mhm,
goes to court, a judge could override that and say, wait a second, what's this fee being used for? And because remember, in a magistrate's court
mhm,
and states that are commonwealths,
mhm.
the judge is the law. The judge can
Mhm.
say, well, this isn't covered specifically Landlord Tenant Act, so I'm going to judge it this way. And then whatever he comes up with is the law.
So if I wanted to confirm that
Let me
federal,
finish.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, let me finish.
I'm sorry.
So that's the first part. On the second part about
Okay.
taking a portion of rent and
Mhm,
applying it towards a down payment where it's being
Mhm.
accumulated, I'm
mhm.
not saying you can't do that. You can certainly try. You
Right.
can even document it. But
Right.
again, if it goes to court, just bear in mind that there's all kinds of case law that says, well,
Mhm.
normally escrow accounts and a landlord tenant law were for the benefit of the tenant, right?
Mhm.
I mean, that's just the default. But yeah, there's all kinds of programs out there. And I know Lou personally, and his stuff's good. I'm telling you, the
So
subject to the
if I
trust.
wanted, if I wanted to look up that particular
Mhm.
thing for federally, what would I look up?
Go to
Rent to
Google
own
landlord,
options?
Google landlord tenant law 1957.
Okay.
Start there. And then
Okay.
if you want to learn about lease options, it's in the chapter. So lease options are page, I'll go back here. Getting close. I think it's page 17. Whoops, went too far. Okay, let me scroll down here.
Did you want to show us your screen or are you just looking, honey?
Yeah, I'm looking right now, but I'm pretty sure it's page 17. Let me go back up here. Oh no, page 50. I can't even read my own writing.
Mhm.
Page 57.
Okay. That's
is.
in your
the lease
book,
option.
right?
Yes, and it's
Okay.
a pretty thorough description. Let me just verify that real quick, double check it. Oops, is that it? 26 shall the income. Some of the rebates, well, yes, it's variable print lease option. And it is actually, sorry, it's page 65. Page
Okay,
65, yep.
okay.
Okay, let me do a share screen, hang on 1 second. Share. There you go. So now back to this whole thing about using a portion of rents to accumulate a security deposit. If I was going to do that, and I've done stuff like this in the past too, you definitely want to have it clearly written, like everything's specified, like extremely detailed, and you want to have whoever the buyer / renter is sign it, sign everything, initial every page, and something like that. Maybe have them specifically initial and sign a paragraph that says, "I understand. I've read and understand this paragraph. What this means is that money's being held in escrow, but I do not have rights to that money unless it is applied specifically for down payment." Something like that, really specific, because otherwise, the default is the landlord-tenant law is going to be used. So if it goes to court, a judge could say, "Well, you read it and you signed it," and the guy's going to say, "Yeah, I did." But then the lawyer's going to say, "Did you understand what you were signing?" And guess what that guy's going to say? "Nope. I trusted Gary Wilson. He told me what this was all about and it was going to be okay." That's the reality of what could happen. But the point is still document it, make sure that specific piece is detailed out and specifically signed, like a signature just on that block. And then if you got a good attorney, then they could, tear apart the other guy and you might actually win. So, but another thing to bear in mind, guys, is 99% of the time you're not going to have a problem. People do know what they're doing, and they're purposely, they want to buy a house, so they want to delay the inevitable purchase part of it. Personally, it was me, I would do a land contract. That's what I would do. Because land contract is a recognized body of law, been around for hundreds of years, and it usually is used in land deals. So it's something with a lot of case study. Okay.
Can you walk us through the deets on a land contract versus rent to own and lease to own, please? Or lease option?
Yeah, land contracts, they're in here too. I didn't write that down for a subject for tonight, but basically, here's the biggest thing to remember about a land contract. You're purchasing a piece of property. Let's say you're the buyer. There's no lease involved, anything like that. This is a straight purchase. But what you're doing is you're paying the owner. It's usually owner financing, it's usually where it happens. And the owner's going to hold the deed to the property until you've paid him off or some date in between there. It's usually based on time or money or some combination. So in other words, let's say you do a land contract for a 100-acre piece of property for $100,000. It's all in writing. It actually says up top, this is a land contract. It has to have that in writing right at the top of the contract. And then the term is for 20 years. The loan's for 20 years, $5,000 a year plus 10% interest, something like that. It doesn't mean you have to wait 20 years to get the deed. You can also write in there, after 10 years, the buyer has the right to obtain the deed to the property. And then from that point forward, what he's paying to the old owner is simply a loan, right? That's how that would look in the eyes of the law. But essentially the main point here, guys, is you're buying the property, you're getting possession, you're getting all the other rights, even equitable rights, by the way, but you're not getting the legal title. That's the thing that's delayed to some future date. Does that help? That's the critical thing. And most other forms of purchasing, the deed does transfer at the time of purchase. This is one of the only land contracts are the only ones where the deed is to transfer the deed is delayed to later. So there's like in the old days, there were 7 forms of ownership. Now there's only 5. So this should be one of the 5 where it's the only one I'm aware of where that one form of ownership is not transferred till some future date, you know? So,
It's kind of like when you buy a car and they don't give you a title until you paid it off.
yeah, and a car, you think about it, your car is unique is because it's not a fixed stationary asset. It's a, you know, obviously you can drive off the car lot and, you know, go wherever you want. So that's why they do that. You know, they don't want you to go out and resell it and not pay the loan off, you know? So they keep the deed, that's like, or keep the title, excuse me, yeah. But that's in there too, that's a good one. There was a time when land contracts were being used all the time, you know? And then trust became a very big thing. And anybody take loose trust program? Yeah, good stuff, you know?
I did.
Yep, and I'm a big fan myself. I mean, I have a asset protection trust. It's irrevocable, and going forward, anything I purchase, I'm putting in a trust. You know, once you do the first one, definitely more complex than an LLC, but just like anything else, you pay for the education first, and you reap the rewards every time thereafter. You know, so yeah. Okay, guys, that was it for my agendas. Any more questions, comments?
Can you check
Yeah.
the chat box too?
Oh yeah, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so you were talking about lease option to rent, option to purchase, and rent to own. In one document, I'm not following. Oh, so Naomi, in a lease option, that's actually two different documents. One is the lease, and one is the
Right.
option. That's an
No,
option.
I understand that. I
Oh.
understand the steps, but like I was just lost where we were because we were talking about
Oh.
something. And then we went into, like, we got sidetracked and went somewhere else.
Oh,
And then we went into Gina's story and I was like, okay, wait, I'm just kind of like lost to what we were discussing at that time because I was just sidetracked. But I guess I can look it up on page 65, I think it was. It says where where the lease options were. I'm
Yeah.
not sure. Your last. And then I was wondering, I did see a question on there. Where do we get this book from, or where do we go to get this information that you provided us today?
so Beverly's gonna listen to this, and tomorrow she likely will send the link for the whole book, the Massive Passive Cash Flow Method book. That would be better for you because it's the entire book. And then in there, you'll see a chapter, and I think it's chapter 4, that's just on these creative purchasing techniques, you know?
Okay.
It's a big book. I think it's 500 something pages, but and she may just send out just this chapter. I think she'll send out the link for the whole book. Yeah, I know I covered a lot tonight. I probably should have kept it to just 3 things, but the main thing I wanted to convey is, you know, forming simple partnerships is actually pretty easy. Let me reduce this chat box here. Guys, whenever you do form a partnership with someone where you're the person doing the flipping and the other person's providing the money, you want to think of yourself like you do an agency. We have to promote ourselves, right? So we want to make ourselves look good. So what I would recommend is build a resume on yourself. If you don't have one, everybody should have a resume, okay? And if you've already done a few projects, even if they're rentals and other flips and wholesaling and things like that, document them, show case studies. You're going to provide like a portfolio to a money person. So show them some projects you've worked on, even if they weren't your own projects. Show them projects you've worked on for other investors. Okay, you want to show them that you've got experience in the world of investing, and they'll be more likely to lend you the money. You know, but what I'm getting at is you want to build a resume and a portfolio, basically just like an artist has or a contractor would have, showing previous remodeling projects. And something else too is, you don't have to do it right away, but a third step would be build a website, real simple website showing your projects. And that it helps you look more professional. Somebody gets your name. Hey, you know, Naomi does good jobs on flipping. They Google Naomi. And if you got a website that shows some of your other clients' flips, and so maybe some of your own, boy, that'll really be a big notch in your belt. It'll help you get approved. Yep. So So Gil, have you done any more money deals like that before, borrowing or private money?
No,
Other than-
we just did that first deal, and then after that, we just started buying holds.
Okay, smart man. That's where the real wealth is, right?
Yep.
Yep, long term. Hey, Lou Carlson, would you mind reiterating the concept of the open-end mortgage for everybody again? Because we have some new folks on tonight. Looks like there you are. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to, Gary, but I have never done it in less than 45 minutes.
Oh, boy. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. No, and I want to do it justice because it's so important that once you grasp this concept, it changes everything.
Okay. Hey, guys, would you, Lou, talk about this next Monday?
Sounds like a class.
I would, because here's why. But guess what else? Susan Murray has a friend, Larry Saunders, who's going to come on to our team meeting next Wednesday, the 9th, just to talk briefly about something a lot of lenders are doing. They've always done this, but they're promoting it as a new product. When banks lend money to us to buy rental properties, they use what's called a debt coverage ratio to determine if the project is low enough for risk for them to take. Banks are all about risk avoidance and a risk reduction. So debt coverage ratio simply means after expenses, there's enough money in the rental income
Come on.
to pay the principal interest on the mortgage. Okay, and as ratio should be minimum 1.25% in normal times. In tough times, it's as high as 1.75 or even higher. Well, in any case, there's a loan now they call it a DCR loan, debt coverage ratio loan. But here's what's really important about it is, remember I've told you in the past when I was heavily investing that as I grew my portfolio, the lenders didn't even care about me. They didn't care about my credentials and my history and background. They cared about the property. See, in a DCR loan that they're promoting these days, and a lot of lenders are doing this, they're not even looking at your personal income. It's not part of the equation. They're simply basing their decision solely on the income of the property. So this is a big deal for everybody working with investors, which should be everybody. Okay, you can now, after you meet Larry, you can say, look, we can get you a loan where they're not looking at your personal income statement. They don't even care. You know, you can provide it, but they're going to look at the property.
It's asset based.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So that's going to be
non-recourse.
non-recourse. Yep. So Monday we'll have Lou on talking about the open-end mortgage, which is to me an even bigger deal. And on Wednesday, just for about 10 minutes, we'll have Larry Saunders, maybe 15 minutes, talk about the DCR mortgage. So if anybody here is a guest, Beverly, when you listen to this, can we please make this available for Julie Cawley and Melanie Abraham? Let's see who else is a guest here. If you, because it's something I think you want to see. And I don't want to have you not be able to see it simply because you're not on the team. Esperlando, let's see, is anybody else? Seems like there was somebody else.
Thanks, Gary.
You're very welcome. Was it Kate? Was that her name? I don't see her on anymore. Remember in the beginning, we promoted her?
Yes, I can't
I
think.
think it was Kimberly Bailey,
Kimberly Bailey, that's what it was,
Yeah.
Kimberly Bailey.
and
Yep.
she was my guest, so I can, reach out to her also.
Okay, awesome. Good, thanks, Liz. Okay, guys,
Gary, I
Well,
wanted to ask you,
yes.
did you talk to your contact about the book writing and doing a class on that?
Oh, did you? Oh, yes. Yes, she's going to teach class on Monday, April 18th, Demi Stevens. And I'm also going to have her on her podcast.
Perfect.
So you guys are going to like that one. She's worked with some pretty impressive people. And when she first worked with me, I'm thinking, gee, I must really be important. Demi Stevens is working with me, but she's one of the most down-to-earth people you ever meet. Humble, smart. I mean, beyond brilliant, like off the chart smart. And she's really good at what she does. Editing, publishing, she does all the legal work for you. It's just an amazing program. So and I'm pretty sure she'll offer you a pretty good deal. It's not free, it's going to cost a little bit, but I can tell you what, guys, if you're used to handing out business cards, and getting frustrated with how few people call you back, just know this, you have a book, you're not gonna have any problem getting people calling you back. Okay. Oh, one thing to remember, when you give a book away, what I would do is I'd keep a stack of them with you, 30, 40, 50 books. Ahead of time, sign and put your number in there if you're going to like a Chamber of Commerce event or something like that. If you're not, keep some that are not signed. That way, when you meet with people, you personally signing in front of them has an impact on them. It's special. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
cool.
Let me give you your number.
Good idea.
But what do you do before you give them the book? What do you get? Their contact information.
Okay.
Yeah. I learned that lesson the hard way. I gave away a bunch of books and said, wait a minute, I don't even know who these people were, you know?
It's also really good for like first-time homebuyer seminars or other things like
Right.
those where you want to get information really easily. The winner, do cards and winners get a book.
Yeah. Yep. Hey, so Julie, there's books you can get that you don't even have to write. They're called part of the public domain. And two of them that I use came from actually Keller Williams. So you can, they don't do it anymore. I don't know why they don't, but I've got the originals on our website, and you can repurpose it, put your name on it. Yep. You have to give credit. You have to call it a citation. You have to cite where you got the information in the book in there. You got to say credit to blah, blah, blah. But that way you don't have to write a book. You just basically repurpose it and make it yours, basically customize and be yours. But that is an excellent way, if, how to sell your home in 10 easy steps, 10 things you need to know before you buy a home, things like that. And you'll blow everybody else going into a listing appointment. It's going to come in with a typical, packet booklet portfolio type thing, which works. But you show
Really
up with a
good.
book,
Mhm.
right? And you hand sign it for them. That definitely will set you apart from the crowd.
Yeah, excellent.
Yeah.
So Gary, I have one.
Yes, ma'am.
It's
Oh, there you go.
Insider home selling tips. So I sent this out to my sphere. So this has my face on it. So this is my
That's awesome.
Hey, Bonetta, how was vacation?
buyers, one for sellers. Yes, I'm sorry. What did you say?
How was vacation?
Oh my God. Dubai was like the Emerald City without the wizard. It was beautiful.
Wow.
I had an absolute fabulous time.
Wow.
Oh, how wonderful.
Yeah, we did
Yeah.
a desert safari. We went up to the Wiz Khalifa, which is currently the tallest building in the world, 160 stories. And they're
Wow.
in the process of building one even taller than that. I said, what y'all do? Y'all trying to see Jesus? What are y'all doing? We went to the Grand Mosque in Abu Dhabi. Oh my God, they call it the White House.
Yeah.
It was fabulous. I had a fabulous time.
Hey, what's amazing about this, guys? Think about this. It's especially in light of current events. Would you say oil is still a very big deal on planet Earth?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Because this, what's really interesting is Dubai was only developed like in the 90s. It used to be pure desert. And now they irrigate water into the city because they have no system. There was no water there, and they import trees in. It's amazing what they've done in a short period of time and what they're doing. Fabulous.
Yeah. But all this stuff happening, guys, it never fails. I mean, until we learn to not use oil, US, Canada, Russia,
Yeah.
Saudis, oil is, that's,
Oh yeah, oil's king.
yeah, that's it. Crazy world. But you know what? The good news is we're in a really good industry, because no matter what happens, people always got to have a place to live,
Absolutely.
whether they're renting or buying or selling.
That's right.
So, and I do want to tell you this, guys, nobody has a crystal ball. And I'm going to go over this again next Wednesday for everybody, but remember my equation of upside potential versus downside risk, right? So if you, in light of all that's happening, the stock market's going up, way up, then it went down and up and down. I mean, it's going wacky in the last 2 months. It's very unpredictable. That happens every time before a recession occurs, and the bigger the numbers, the bigger the swings. So that's been happening. Inflation.
That
Yeah.
makes sense because it's volatile because they don't know.
Exactly. Yep. It's inflation. They said in January or maybe 4 weeks ago, hey, it's not 5%, it's 7%. But they give you the chart of all the products, gasoline at the top, shaving cream at the bottom, and everything in between are most expensive, the least expensive. If you pay attention to it, they don't tell you this because they just say the average is 7%. But look at the details. Shaving cream inflation is only like 2%. And what costs like $3? And what do we buy like every 3 months? But gasoline at the top is most expensive. We buy it every week. That's going up like 75%. So if you weight it, we call weighting the weighting factor. It's not 7% inflation. That may be the average, but what it really feels like is probably like 30 to 35%.
It feels doubled. Has anyone gone to Costco lately?
Oh, yep.
I never could walk out of Costco without a $300 cart, which is not a big deal, but it was 900 and change for my Costco cart. 900. I'm like, there needs to be flipping couch in there for that price. I couldn't believe it.
$900.
I feel like, I mean, just the looking at the prices, consumer prices, like double to triple of a lot of items.
Yes.
So,
And I'll echo that example.
Yeah.
I walked out of there the other day with 4 items and spent over $100. And that was not, that was just to replenish some of my fundamentals.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm single and I'm spending over $100. Something wrong. Something wrong.
yeah.
It costs us. Something wrong.
Catherine says, but the roasted chicken's still $4.99. That's right.
And I spent about $45 at the gas tank today.
Oh, yeah. It's crazy.
For station wagon.
Yeah. Well, beef. Look at get a roast. It's crazy, you know.
Oh my gosh, it was over $100 for Christmas stuff.
So in any case, that plus we know interest rates are going up. The Fed's already said they're going to raise rates at least 1%. And if rates are currently at 4%, what percentage increase is that? If you go to 4% to 5%, that's a 25% increase. Yep. So you put all those factors together, guys, plus obviously this market's been on longer than almost any other market, 10 years plus, you know, through the roof. I'm not just scared, I'm just saying this to prepare you, right? Prepare you. So do the right thing, do the hard work, and get on the phone, use your early flow account and get a hold of these people that own investment properties, because when things do turn, remember the ownership business is what's going to slow down. The investor business is going to pick up. So I beg you, please do not wait to build those relationships. Get them now, because when it happens, the last time, guys, it happened fast. I never saw a recession happen so fast the last time. It was like in months. It was 3 months. They're like, holy cow. So I'm saying this because I love you. And this is my 5th one. And I know from experience, you know, if you want to not just survive or thrive, you have got to do the hard work now, you know, do the hard work now. So, and I promise you, when half the agents leave, well, here's an example of what I'm saying. The last recession, volume only dropped 25% across the board. Half the agents, 50% left. That's a fact. That means 50% of the agents were left, but they were getting 75% of the original business, which means they're on average, their business probably increased by 50% then, right? 75 on top of 50. Now, not everybody did that. I mean, there were people like me that I already had the our business sold because of that. And I wasn't a genius, just happened to have that model at the right time. But I know people that did too. And it was like, we're up here watching all this crazy stuff happening. I went to a 5-star event in Dallas. And this is no joke. I mean, they had asset managers there. People, agents, elbowing each other, shoving each other to shove their business cards in the asset managers' faces. And I'm like, I'm out of here. I don't want anything to do with this mess, you know? And I learned from the asset managers, the reason they picked us to get the deals is we already had the business. We already were doing the business, right? Millions of agents were applying to get listings from asset managers. And all they got was something called BPOs. All it is basically
It's chump change.
It is. You can't even fill up your gas tank with it. You know, it's less than minimum wage. And it's they fool you. They say, do these BPOs and you'll be first on our list to get that next listing. Nope. The same old people get all listings. You guys noticed that last time? Who get all the listings? The same people.
Mhm.
Yep. So any case, so my suggestion is please, do the hard work now, get out there and make the call, swing the bat. And Bonetta tried to get on, by the way, to the Home Steps program, but in Virginia, the broker had not registered for it yet. So most states, I think, already have an NAID, so you can all go in and register to be a selling agent for HUD, as long as you have your broker's NAID. And on the other ones, the VRMO and the Home Steps, okay, and Home Path, your broker has to be a registered member, and then you can sign up as an agent to sell those properties. If they're not already there, please let me know, and I'll call the broker for that state and show them it's 5 minutes is all it takes to do it. So one of them told the Bonettas it's not hiring a priority list. They're probably thinking it's some big process. It's 5 minutes. So as long as I know I can help have some influence over that. I'm kind of going long on the tooth tonight, but we'll go over this again next Wednesday. So Lou, thanks, buddy, for stepping up to the plate. We'll see you next Monday. Oh, Lou, I sent you an email earlier too about Jay and, okay, all right, good. Okay, so and everybody, so Kendra, Dat, you'll get an email tomorrow from Beverly. If you don't see it, please email Beverly. I'll type her address in the chat box. Hang on 1 second. Because we noticed that when someone first joins the team, sometimes the your email server is blocking the emails from Beverly. So she'll need an alternative email for you if that's the case. Beverly at REWGW. So Dat and Kendra, just if you don't see the email, and check spam first, email Beverly and she'll chase it down for you. So okay, guys. I know you know what time it is. What time is it?
Hard time.
Ice cream time.
I still got Girl Scout cookies too, so it's ice cream and Girl Scout cookies.
All right. Thank you
All right,
so
guys,
much.
have a wonderful night. God bless you and your families. And if you need anything, you got my number, just let me know. And otherwise, I'll see you next Monday or on the one-on-ones. If you haven't had a one-on-one, please send them up. They're going fast, so I'd grab them while you can. So,
Bye.
Have a
Okay,
good
guys.
night. Bye, thank you.
night,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Good night, guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.